some fathers get a phone call in the middle of the night that changes everything. I got 3 days of nothing. And that silence nearly destroyed me before my own sons ever said a word. You want to know what it feels like to love someone so much it becomes a disease? Let me tell you, it feels like standing in your kitchen at 2 o'clock in the morning, staring at a phone that won't ring, convinced your own child is lying dead in a ditch somewhere in Florida. That was me, 52 years old, gripping a coffee mug so hard my knuckles went white, waiting for 2 grown men to pick up a phone. My name is Gary Cooper. I run Anvil Biomed out of Shaker Heights, Ohio, a company that calibrates and repairs the machines hospitals can't survive without. MRI units, surgical lasers, the stuff that beeps and hums and keeps people breathing. I built that business with my hands and my back, and I built it so my boys would never know what it felt like to go without. My father didn't get that chance. He shipped out when I was 7. He never came home. Nobody taught me how to throw a baseball. Nobody sat me down and told me I mattered. So when Harry was born, and then Darren 2 years later, I made myself a promise standing in that hospital hallway in Shaker Heights. These boys will never know that kind of empty. I kept that promise for 25 years. And then, on a Tuesday in late May, that promise turned into the worst 3 days of my life. It started with a letter. Boring, official, the kind of thing you'd skim over coffee and forget by lunch. Notice of lease renewal. Guarantor verification required. Harry's apartment. That gorgeous high-rise unit down in Brickell. The one with the wraparound balcony overlooking Biscayne Bay. I'd co-signed at least 2 years back when he landed his first real job in Miami. I'm the guarantor. My name, my credit, my signature holding the whole thing up like a steel beam nobody sees. The renewal was due in 5 days. Before I signed off, I needed one quick answer from Harry, a detail about his income documentation the property manager wanted cleared up. Simple. One phone call, 30 seconds tops. I dialed him from my office, leaning back in my chair, half watching a technician recalibrate an ultrasound probe through the glass. Straight to voicemail. Fine, probably in a meeting. I left a message. Gary, hey, it's Dad. Got the lease renewal paperwork here. Need to verify something with you before I sign it. Call me back when you get a second. No big deal. I went back to work. By the next afternoon, nothing. I called again. Voicemail again. Now I'll admit the first flicker of unease showed up right there. I know Harry hardly picks up sometimes when I call, but he doesn't ignore me for a full day. Never has. So I called Darren, figuring he'd know where his brother was. Voicemail. Both of them. Same day. I told myself it was nothing. Kids get busy, they forget. I left another message, trying to keep my voice light. Gary. Guys, I really need to hear back from you. Harry's apartment. The renewal deadline's coming up fast. Just give me a call. Kate noticed something was off with me that night at dinner. My wife's known me for 28 years. She can read a shift in my face before I even feel it myself. Kate, you've barely touched your food. What's going on with you? Gary, the boys aren't answering. Either of them. Since yesterday. Kate, waving it off. They're busy, Gary. They're grown men. She was right. I knew she was right. So why did my stomach feel like it was folding in on itself? Day 3 is when it stopped being annoying and started being terrifying. The deadline on that lease was now 48 hours out. I called Harry 7 times that day. 7. I called Darren 5 times. Every single call died in a voicemail box. I stopped eating. I stopped sleeping. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw car wrecks. I saw 2 Florida State troopers standing on my porch with their hats in their hands. You've already lost a father once, Gary. You know exactly how fast this world can take someone from you. Quiet, sudden, and nobody warns you first. That night, I sat at the edge of the bed at 1 a.m., phone in my hand, thumb hovering over Harry's name for the 100th time. Kate sat up behind me. Kate, Gary, come to bed. Gary, something's wrong, Kate. 3 days. Neither one of them. That's not busy. That's not normal. Kate, maybe they're together. Maybe their phones died. Gary, both phones. For 3 straight days. I turned to look at her, and I could see it land on her face too. That same cold drop in the stomach. Gary, pack a bag. We're flying out there. Something is wrong. I can feel it. She didn't argue with me. That's the thing about 28 years of knowing each other. You learn which fights are worth having, and which ones you just get up and pack a bag for. We booked the first flight out of Hopkins the next morning. I remember standing at the gate, watching the Cleveland skyline shrink behind the window, thinking this might be the worst decision I'd ever made, or it might save their lives. I had no idea which. Kate held my hand the entire flight. Neither of us said much. What do you say? Hope our sons aren't dead. Doesn't exactly make for good small talk with the flight attendant handing out pretzels. I kept running the scenarios in my head like some sick highlight reel. A car accident on I-95, a break-in at the apartment, Darren on that motorcycle he swore he'd sold. None of it prepared me for what was actually waiting behind that door. We landed in Miami just after 2 o'clock in the afternoon. The heat hit us like a wall the second we stepped off the plane. I rented a Lincoln Navigator and pointed us toward Brick Hill. Kate kept saying the same thing on a loop, like she was trying to convince herself. Kate, they're fine. They're probably just fine, Gary. There's probably some boring explanation. Gary, then why won't they pick up the phone? 3 days, Kate. 14 calls between the two of us. Not one text back. She went quiet after that. I think some part of her knew. Harry's building rose up out of the Brick Hill skyline, like something out of a magazine. Glass, chrome, 30 stories. We rode the elevator up to the 14th floor in silence. My hand was actually shaking when I raised it to knock. 25 years of fatherhood, and I was standing outside my own son's door like a man about to identify a body. And that's when I heard it. Music. Laughter. Loud, easy, celebratory laughter. Balloons taped in a cluster right beside the doorframe, bobbing gently every time someone inside walked past a vent. That's not the sound of tragedy, I thought. And for 1/2 second, relief flooded through me, so hard my knees nearly buckled. Thank God. Thank God they're okay. I knocked. The music dipped. Footsteps. The latch clicked, and the door swung open to reveal my oldest son, Harry, drink in hand, a wide grin frozen halfway between surprised and something far colder. That grin didn't stay confused for long. It curdled into something else entirely. Harry, what are you guys doing here? Not Dad. Not Mom. Not even is everything okay. Just, what are you guys doing here like we were a couple of door-to-door salesmen he'd have to figure out how to get rid of? Gary, I have been calling. You didn't answer. I thought something happened to you. Kate pushed past me a step, hands flying up to her mouth. Kate, oh thank God. Son, you're okay. We've been calling for 3 days straight. We were sick with worry. We thought something terrible. Harry cut her off before she even finished the sentence, rolling his eyes, a full, dramatic, exhausted eye roll. Harry, we didn't answer because we didn't want to talk to you. Stop calling us. We have our own lives. You're suffocating us. Just stay on your own. Stay on your own. For words. I've been hit by a lot of things in my life. A garage door once. A rogue MRI card that got away from a technician. My own father's absence for 45 straight years. None of it landed the way those 3 words landed. Before I could even find words, a woman stepped up beside Harry. Young, pretty, holding a glass of something pink and bubbly, her whole posture radiating a kind of smug exhaustion. Woman, honestly, it's too much. Do you guys ever stop hovering? Kate, blinking lost. I'm sorry, who are you? The girl's smile widened. She raised her left hand, slow and deliberate, like she was presenting evidence in a courtroom. A ring caught the hallway light. Woman, I'm Haley, his fiancée, and today is our engagement party, which you are currently ruining by showing up uninvited. Uninvited. Ruining. I heard the words land, but for a second they didn't fully register. Our son, engaged, and we found out standing in a hallway being told we were ruining it. 28 years of marriage, and I have never once seen Kate look the way she looked in that moment, like someone had reached into her chest with a bare hand. Darren appeared in the doorway right about then, holding a tray of Mojo pork and fried plantains, and groaned the second he saw us. Darren, are you serious right now? You guys just couldn't let us have this one day, could you? I felt something steady itself inside me right then. Fear was turning into something else. I don't know if it was anger yet. Maybe just clarity. Gary, son, I didn't come here to ruin anything. Your landlord sent an urgent notice. Your lease renewal deadline is tomorrow, and because I'm the primary guarantor, I needed to verify a quick detail before signing it, so you don't lose this place. I called your brother. Then I called you. Neither of you answered for 3 days. Darren let out a short, mocking laugh. No humor in it, just contempt wearing humor's jacket. Darren, Oh, here we go again. The savior complex. You think because you co-signed a piece of paper you get to track our every move? This is exactly why we both chose colleges thousands of miles from home. We literally picked our schools just to get away from your constant, suffocating help. Harry nodded along like his brother had just delivered a TED Talk, then leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. Harry, exactly. You always use money and fixing things just to keep tabs on us and feel important. I pay my own rent now, with my own job. I don't need you hovering over me acting like a hero. Pause. We saw your calls. We purposefully didn't answer. We wanted to see how long it would take for you to finally get the hint and stay on your own. Purposefully. Not we were busy. Not our phones died. Purposefully. For 3 days I'd sat awake, picturing every possible danger they could be in, while my son sat somewhere watching my name light up their screens and deciding, on purpose, to let their own father suffer, just to teach him a lesson. Haley tossed her hair back, clearly bored of the whole exchange. Haley, we're trying to celebrate our future with people who actually matter. We don't need your old school drama here. Please leave. Please leave. In my own son's doorway, by a woman I'd met 4 minutes ago. I want you to understand something about me, because it matters for everything that comes after. I didn't yell. My own father never got the chance to teach me how to handle a moment like that. So, I had to figure it out myself. Standing there with balloons bobbing behind my son's head like some cruel party decoration, I looked at the 2 boys I had poured my entire life into. They stood there in a lifestyle my signature and my credit had built. The apartment, the cars, every safety net under their feet, completely blind to it, treating their own mother like something to be swept off the doorstep. I didn't argue. I didn't raise my voice. I just reached over, gently took my sobbing wife's hand, and turned toward the elevator. Behind us, I heard Haley mutter something to Harry. I didn't catch the words, and honestly I didn't need to. The tone said enough. They wanted to be on their own. Tomorrow, they were going to get exactly what they asked for. The elevator ride down felt longer than the entire flight from Cleveland. Kate stood beside me, silent, staring at the mirrored doors, tears running steady down her face without a single sound. I've seen my wife cry plenty of times in 28 years. At her mother's funeral, at both boys' graduations, once during a Hallmark commercial I still tease her about. I had never seen her cry like that. Silent. Hollow. We didn't talk in the lobby. We didn't talk in the navigator. She finally spoke somewhere around the on-ramp for the causeway, staring out the water. Kate, 20 years. I kept that ring polished for 20 years, Gary. I used to imagine the day I'd give it to her, whoever he chose. I imagined telling her the story behind it. My grandmother coming over from Poland with nothing but that ring sewn into the lining of her coat. I imagined. I don't know what I imagined. Not that. Not being told I'm ruining a party I didn't even know was happening. I reached over and took her hand off her lap, held it the rest of the drive. The flight home was the quietest 2 hours of my life. Kate stared out the window the entire time, watching Florida shrink and disappear beneath the clouds. I held her hand and said nothing. What was there to say? It'll be fine. It wasn't fine. They didn't mean it. They meant every word. They told us themselves they planned it, watched the calls come in, and chose silence on purpose. They're just going through a phase. 25 and 22 years old is not a phase. That's a grown man's decision, made in full daylight, with a fiancé cheering him on. Somewhere over Georgia, something shifted inside my chest. Quiet but permanent. Like a door closing somewhere deep in a house you thought you knew every room of. I gave them everything I never had. And somehow, in giving them all of that, I built 2 men who look at me like I'm the villain in their story. By the time we touched down in Cleveland, something in me had already made a decision, even though I didn't have the words for it yet. They wanted to be left alone. So I left them alone, legally, financially, and completely. And by the time they figured out what that actually meant, it was already too late to undo it. We walked into our house in Shaker Heights a little after 10 that night, and the silence hit us different than it ever had before. Kate made it 2 steps past the front hall before her knees just gave out. She went down onto the living room floor, right there on the rug her mother had given us as a wedding gift, and she cried the way you cry when someone dies. I got down on the floor with her. Didn't say anything smart. Didn't try to fix it. I just held her while she cried into my shoulder. Gary, quietly, moored himself into her. I gave them everything I never had. I was there for every moment. I was the father I always wished for. And somehow, in doing that, I turned them into people who look at me like I'm the enemy. Kate lifted her head, eyes red and swollen. Kate, no, Gary. You didn't turn them into anything. They did that themselves. You just handed them a life they never had to work for. And people who never work for something never learn to be grateful for it. I held my wife on that living room floor until almost midnight. Somewhere in there, I made myself a promise. The only person who had stood by me through every single version of my life, good, bad, terrified, exhausted, was lying right there in my arms. My boys had their own lives now. They'd made that painfully, deliberately clear. So I decided I was going to honor that wish and spend whatever time I had left loving the one person who had actually earned it. We didn't sleep much that night. We talked, really talked. We agreed on one thing above everything else. Whatever happened next, we'd move together. By sunrise, we were aligned. And Gary Cooper, aligned with his wife, is not a man you want standing between you and a phone. I call my lawyer, Paul Hopper, at exactly 8:02 a.m. He's handled Amble Biomed's contracts for 15 years. He knows when I'm calling about business and when I'm calling about something else entirely. This was clearly something else. Paul, Gary, you sound like a man who didn't sleep. Gary, I need you to pull my name off Harry's lease guarantee. Today, before the renewal window closes. There was a pause. The kind of good lawyer gives you when he wants to make sure you're not about to do something you'll regret by lunchtime. Paul, you sure about that? Once that renewal lapses without your backing, the property management system is going to flag it automatically. No warning period, no grace window on a place like that. Gary, I've never been more sure of anything. Paul didn't argue further. By 9:15, the withdrawal was filed. By noon, it was processed. The renewal deadline came, and went at midnight with no signature attached to it. For the first time in 2 years, there was no Gary Cooper standing behind that lease like an invisible steel beam. I didn't hear anything for 2 days, which frankly felt almost funny given everything that had just happened. The same silence that had nearly destroyed me a week earlier now felt like the most peaceful 2 days I'd had in months. The call came on a Thursday afternoon. I was in my office when my phone buzzed with Harry's name on the screen. I let it ring twice before I picked up. Harry, tight, clip, try hard to sound calm, and failing, Dad. There's some kind of mistake with the lease. The building manager says the renewal didn't go through because there's no guarantor. They just served us an official notice to vacate, and they're hitting us with a non-compliance penalty that doubles our rent for the next 7 days until we're out. Gary, level, almost gentle. There's no mistake, son. I withdrew as guarantor 2 days ago. Dead silence on the line. Harry, you what? Dad, why would you do that? You know I can't qualify on my own income yet. If they file an official eviction lawsuit, it goes on my public record. My credit will be destroyed. Haley and I won't be able to rent a doghouse in this city. Gary, you told me to stay on my own, so I am. Harry, Dad, please, you have to call him back. Tell them it was a mistake. Gary, it wasn't a mistake, Harry. I'll talk to you soon. I hung up. They didn't wait for a sheriff to throw them out. They couldn't afford to have a legal eviction ruin their names. The actual exit happened fast, quiet, and procedural. I heard the details later, secondhand, through a mutual friend of Darren's. Harry and Haley spent 48 straight hours frantically throwing clothes into garbage bags. Security didn't force them out. Security just watched them pack, standing by the elevator while Harry wheeled his own life out of that luxury high-rise on a luggage cart, passing right through the same lobby where 2 weeks earlier they'd told his own mother she was ruining their engagement party. There's a quiet clarity in watching natural consequences finally arrive at a door that had been propped open by my signature for far too long. Because here's the thing nobody tells you about being a fixer your whole life. The moment you stop fixing, the world doesn't collapse. It just becomes honest again. I didn't stop there either. Over the following week, I looked at every other financial thread tying my name to theirs. I called our account manager at the bank that held Harry's side business line of credit, which was secured by my company's assets, and officially revoked the authorization for him to use my collateral. The bank froze his business draw immediately and issued a demand for him to find new security within 30 days. Next, I called the lender on Darren's Jeep. I informed them in writing that as co-signer, I was actively refusing to cover any future delinquencies. Since Darren's credit score alone was a disaster, The bank flagged the loan as high risk and demanded an immediate restructure. I didn't do it with anger. I just let the financial institutions do what they do best. Look at my son's actual worth without my shadow covering them. They asked to be on their own. I was just letting the bank show them exactly what that meant. They showed up on our porch about 3 weeks later. They didn't have a choice. Miami had chewed them up and spit them out the second my money vanished. Harry's business venture collapsed without the line of credit, and with no luxury high-rise to live in. They'd packed whatever fit into a budget rental box truck and driven 18 hours straight back to Ohio. They didn't call first. Darren was the one doing the knocking, hard and fast, his face pale and furious. I opened the door, let them in, sat them down in the living room, the same room Kate had collapsed in weeks earlier, and let them say whatever they'd driven 18 hours from Miami to say. Harry went first, crying before he even got through the doorway. Real tears this time, not performance. Though it took me a minute to remember that real tears don't automatically mean real accountability. Harry, how could you do this to us? We're family. You're ruining our lives over a small argument. And you know I'm getting married soon. Gary, voice entirely empty of emotion. Small argument? You watched your mother and me call you for 3 days straight while we were sick with worry. You ignored us on purpose to teach me a lesson. Now the world is teaching you one. Harry's face shifted, grief curdling fast into something uglier. Harry, you're just a control freak who wants to see us fail. You've always been like this. You can't stand that we don't need you anymore. This is a sick revenge plot because we didn't invite you to a party. Gary, I don't want to see you fail, son. But you told me you didn't need me hovering over you, acting like a hero. I'm just honoring your wish. If you truly don't need me, then you don't need my name on your apartment. You don't need my collateral for your business. And you don't need my signature on your debt. That's not revenge. That's adulthood. Harry's jaw tightened. I watched him search for another angle. Harry, pivoting, desperate. Mom would never have let this happen. You're doing this behind her back, aren't you? You're punishing us because you're bitter. That's when Kate stepped into the room from the kitchen doorway, arms crossed, voice steady in a way I hadn't heard since before that hallway in Brickell. Kate, your dad and I are on the same page. We talked about this together. We both agreed to honor your wish to be left alone. Darren, who'd been quiet up to that point, finally cracked. Darren, Mom, you can't be serious. I stood up, walked over, put my hand gently on Kate's shoulder. Gary, so here we are. We're leaving you alone. Good luck. I watched something in both of their faces finally understand, really understand, that this wasn't a phase, wasn't a bluff, wasn't a father who'd caved the second his sons cried hard enough in his living room. I listened to them cry and blame me for their own mess. They try to make me feel guilty for their eviction, for their financial collapse, for every choice they themselves had made. But I felt nothing but clarity. These were the same boys who stood in a doorway and told me I was suffocating them. They didn't want my help when I was offering it freely. They just wanted someone to blame once they realized they couldn't do it alone. They left that night without another word. Kate and I stood in that living room in a silence that, for the first time in weeks, didn't feel like grief. It felt like peace. I want to see Paul Hopper again the following week. This time it wasn't about a lease. Gary, I want to rewrite the trust. Completely. Paul, the same careful look he'd given me the day I pulled Harry's guarantee. How completely? Gary, if I die first, everything goes to Kate. If she dies first, everything comes to me. And if we're both gone, pause. $0 go to the boys. Instead, there are charities that fund scholarships for kids of fallen military veterans. Kids whose fathers shipped out and never came home. Kids who'd give anything just to have a father call them once and actually mean it. That's where it goes. All of it. Paul didn't ask me to reconsider. He just nodded, made the note, and got to work. My own father was taken from me by a deployment that never ended the way it was supposed to. I grew up without him, and I swore my children would never know that particular kind of ache. And somehow, in giving them everything I never had, I raised two boys who took a loving father completely for granted. My boys don't need my money. They've made that abundantly clear. But there are kids out there right now, real kids in real houses with a folded flag on a mantle somewhere, who would trade almost anything for a father to call and ask how their day went. My legacy isn't going to the sons who pushed me out of a doorway in Miami. It's going to the children who'd actually give anything to have a father worth calling. Months passed after that. The calls from Harry and Darren slowed, then stopped altogether. I heard through an old family friend that they'd moved into a smaller place together outside the city. No more brick hill views, no more balcony over Biscayne Bay. Struggling, apparently, learning the hard way what a monthly budget actually looks like when your name isn't backed by somebody else's signature. I won't lie and tell you it didn't sting to hear that. It did. Some nights it still does. But every time that ache creeps in, I remember the hallway. I remember Stay on Your Own. I remember watching my wife's face fall apart over a ring that never got its moment. And the ache settles right back down where it belongs. Kate and I sit out on our back porch most evenings now, right around sunset, coffee in hand, watching the sky do its slow fade over the same Shaker Heights backyard where two boys once learned to ride bikes I'd stayed up half the night assembling. She reached over one evening, not too long ago, and put her hand on mine, the way she's done 1,000 times over 28 years. And I looked at her and realized something simple and true. My father died when I was 7. I spent my whole life trying to be the man he never got the chance to become. But somewhere along the way, I forgot that the only person I truly needed to protect was the woman sitting right beside me the entire time. My boys have their own lives now. They made that crystal clear, standing in a doorway in Miami. And my wife and I, we have each other. And that, it turns out, is more than enough.